Okay. And here is our next interviewer. Take the mic, best of luck. Hello, I'm Sipkás Piréz. Indeed, no. So recognize me, okay. That's something, I use a mic. I'll start with a simple question. Do you consider trans women women? This is a question of ideology. You asked me a question from a particular political standpoint. Whatever I may reply, it won't be an actual expression of my opinion. We won't discuss the complexity of the issue. Instead, you force me into a filter bubble, which I can happen to be critical of, which I may want to examine from various aspects. But your question obviously won't facilitate that. The proposal in itself is quite ideological. It won't get us to think about the recognition and social support people with gender dysphoria need to be an equal member of their community. In accordance with their needs and desires. Gender dysphoria is not strictly necessary to be transgender, but that's another matter. I think the answer is simple. Trans women are women. In your crew, however... Okay, great. For you, simple. And the definition of a woman for those who don't find the answer so simple will be overwritten. I'm not sure what that does you to do that. Reality is collective property. And the terminology which is used to describe early, for example, how can I answer your question? There are two ways. No, trans women are not one. What happens then? I'll be categorized as transphobic, which I strongly deny. I am not transphobic in any way. If I give an affirmative response, though, then the collective category with which we describe our world, the category of a man and a woman, must be nulled. And for those who identify as women, I think it's quite symptomatic that the question is always if trans women are women, and not if trans men are men. That reason is simple. If it is expectation primarily towards women, it's an expectation primarily towards women. That they have to redefine this category which they identify in society. It's a very complex question. I'm against any simplification of this, which only aims to eliminate if the other explicitly with or against us, which are... Thus, it fails to consider which recognitions should become common consensus in order to bring dignity to trans people in the society. And trans men are men, it would have been valid question just as well. I ask this question because there is one member in your crew who proclaims on your platform that trans women are not women. And the question is, are you okay with this? With editorial independence and freedom in content creation maximally. Also, as by the way, and it isn't your responsibility to give platform to various people. Of course it is. Partisan was the only channel on which a transgender person performed Stille Nacht on Christmas Eve. Partisan was the only channel which produced a documentary about a homeless transgender person. Only Partisan initiated a debate, which unfortunately was turned down by the organizations who represent transgender people. That's their right, but to call Partisan transphobic, it's a harsh simplification. I accept your opinion, but I consider this is much more complex matter. It's not only that you give platform to Gulyás, Sophie, but also the way you interviewed Chester and Kathleen's talk. Have you watched my Kathleen's talk interview? Did you feel that my questions were servile? Yes. Okay, I accept your opinion. I think I was careful. And while respecting your opinion, I encourage everyone to see it for themselves. So I believe I made the effort because that was my job. To ask the questions the critics of Kathleen's talk would have asked, I read you a quote, and read your quote, and we will see if you agree. My concern is quite particular. It is related to when, for instance, a little girl who plays football hangs out with her brothers and doesn't like to play with baby dolls and other girls, starts to think that she is a lesbian. What do you think? Na var jag stod ledsen. What do you think about this statement? That was one of my interviewers. Send him a letter expression. Do you agree to find this problematic? I never have to take responsibility for what the interviewers say. I am responsible for who commits hate speech. It's a... Yeah. Just want to... Yeah. No, not cool. It's a personal question and I'm not obligated to answer. What is important or what is still into you? Yeah, that's just making them. What I wanted to say is that for each interviewer there will be an interviewer who will be offended by the mere appearance of the person. I think the objective should be that if, for example, Catalyst talk here is here in Hungary, someone is ready to challenge her, and Partisan will give platform for that debate to able to discuss these questions without taboos. I think what she said was legitimate, and there are other legitimate opinions. As the head of Partisan, my task is to enable the forums which are missing in this country, where you, for example, with a committed and upfront standpoint, can dispute with someone, and then both of you can undertake the obligation to argue and prove points and understand that your opinion won't be endorsed at face value. I think that, for example, the statement trans women are could be the basis of trouble. You cannot just get someone to accept the statement because the avoidance of that might last a serious consequence. Because you can't get our dog. Unable critical thinking in society without that. That this lays back to identity politics again. We only reinforce a filter bubble and won't ever figure out social minimum. How comfortable do you think it is for someone who considers hate speech? I think, for example, of the podcast debate between Bolo Jofi and Vai Blanca. Are you familiar with it? Of course. Do you see that as a productive debate? That's a very important debate. Of course it's important. Do you even consider this a debate? No, but there was a lot of issues. The moderation, for instance, I won't go into detail because I was organized by another medium, which I respect and hold dear. However, I refer to that moderation. It is important that the quality of moderation will determine the quality of debate. If I had the opportunity to host a debate about this, believe me, I would be able to conduct it with an open-minded attitude which is inclusive of every opinion. And I deem this to be very important. Partisan content promoting that trans women are women. I want to say an extensive debate about this statement. The problem is that the representatives of the opinion which now we represent, and I truly appreciate the confrontation. Please give me, the gentleman, a bit more time so he can finish his argument, because this is very important. Because on this channel, this is the first debate about this issue. The conditions are not ideal, but because what is happening in our it's clash about words. Whereas we could clash but truly and extensively inspect the consequences of a statement like trans women are women. We will achieve the recognition and comfort of transgender people. What does this mean for women? What does this mean for society in general? What happens if someone rejects the notion? If is he or she able to avoid the enemy or or should we try to convince that person to dialogue with her? The examination of social phenomena must go beyond declarations. The situation is so grave. Simple statement because of my different obligation. Now, however, he only represented the channel, only represents one side of the debate. The other side was never given a platform. You consider yourself a leftist. The fact that the channel oppresses, discriminates and disdains a social group because a lot of transgender people feel betrayed by Partisan. This is, I know for sure, because of a transgender people who explained that to me. Isn't the channel responsible for portraying a social group? But there are many groups like this. When the interview with Mark Peter has been broadcasted, his voters thought I was hostile. There will be always be groups offended by how they or issues important to them are represented on Partisan. For that, I cannot take responsibility. What I'm responsible for, and I strongly reject what you implied, is that partisans never gave voice to the hate speech, or to hate speech against transgender people or any other group. We don't agree. Obviously, that's fine, but it really loosens our notion of reality. If me not saying that trans women are women is me committing hate speech. If this cannot be the basis of debate, if this alone means I commit hate speech, I assume you think that about me. It's hatred, yes. Okay, then this is the end of democracy. This would be the end of democracy. The end of democracy begins when we expect each other to reinforce dogmas at face value, and if you are not willing... Marcy, you have to express this opinion. If we expect each other to endorse dogmas, then it's not a debate. Na, haladjon már szöveg. We don't reconstruct or reenact, we merely confirmation dogmas, which the ends of democracy. And then comes a conflict of physical force. And then we... Do you think we are hitting each other now? It's obviously not what I meant, but I see your way of deduction. It was irony. But I take you seriously. Before physical violence, no. Aha, csak összevágom.